So the potentially catastrophic escalation of the Russia-Ukraine war, Kiev is now alleging that Moscow deployed an intercontinental ballistic missile against Ukraine. Now Russia, for its part, has remained pretty tight-lipped and has refused to comment on the Ukrainian claim. And what is interesting is that the United States of America, that has been backing the Ukrainian war effort, is denying that Russia launched an ICBM. Our next story decodes as to how the Russia-Ukraine war is continuously escalating, and the possibility of a miscalculation at this stage of war is very real. Take a look.
A chilling escalation in the Ukraine war. Ukraine accused Russia of launching an ICBM. Kiev said the non-nuclear missile targeted the central city of Dnipro. President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Moscow of turning Ukraine into a testing ground for advanced weaponry.
He is so afraid that he uses new missiles and he searches the world for other places to find weapons. In Iran, in North Korea. Today there was a new Russian missile. All the characteristics, speed, altitude of an intercontinental ballistic missile. An investigation is currently underway.
The alleged ICBM strike comes amid a broader missile barrage, representing a potential game-changing moment in modern warfare. Capable of striking targets thousands of kilometers away, these missiles symbolize the ultimate weapon of strategic deterrence. With a range exceeding 5,500 kilometers, ICBMs can theoretically reach virtually any global target, making them the most devastating long-range weapons in military arsenals. The US, Russia, China, France, India, UK and North Korea are the only countries known to have operational ICBMs. Russia and US have the biggest stockpile of these missiles that can carry nuclear warheads and hit any target on the planet. Modern ICBMs equipped with MIRV technology allow multiple targets located at different locations to be engaged with the same missile with several warheads. The Kremlin did not confirm it had deployed the weapon and asserts it is doing everything possible to avoid a nuclear conflict. The British government has issued a stark warning describing potential ICBM use against Ukraine as a conflict escalation of unprecedented magnitude.
They've stepped up attacks on civilian centres, killing children. They've deployed at least 10,000 North Korean troops to the battle. And there are unconfirmed but media reports today of Russia firing a new ballistic missile into Ukraine, which we know have been preparing for months.
Every now and then they are raising the issue of nuclear doctrine, nuclear retaliation, etc., etc. So they are playing a nuclear gamble. Whether they really mean it, it's very hard to foresee. We don't see in their heads. We only know that this is irresponsible.
This development arrived against a backdrop of Russia's rapidly evolving nuclear doctrine. Russia this week updated its nuclear strategy, allowing nuclear weapon deployment against non-nuclear states. The move was seemingly triggered by the US permitting Ukraine to use ATACMS missiles against Russian military targets. Within days of getting the green light, Ukraine fired a barrage of American and British missiles on Russian territory. Moscow has warned of severe reprisals. The war clearly is entering uncharted territory. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now for more insights in this, we are joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, who's a military expert and also the host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Colonel Davis, this is an interesting and a pretty dangerous escalation in terms of how things are panning out. But what is also interesting is that there's no confirmation as to what really has happened. Ukraine claims that Russia fired an intercontinental ballistic missile at its city of Dnipro. The Russians have remained tight-lipped, but interestingly, the United States of America says that Russia may not have fired an ICBM. What's your reading of the situation?
Well, obviously, it's still a lot of chaos and uncertainty and shrouded in mystery, but there have been a couple of reported video evidence of the incoming warheads. And at least from those short clips that we can see, it does have some of the characteristics similar to an ICBM, which is a missile that flies over its target and then at a certain altitude deploys additional submunitions in the case of actual warheads. According to many of the experts, this particular missile had up to 24 additional warheads, and we saw a lot of that would appear to be multiple warheads striking in the different areas. Some of these are even maneuverable. So what it does, it doesn't change anything because we've already known that Russia has these ICBMs. We know they have multiple warhead missiles. We have the same thing. But what it does show is that Putin is serious about when he says if the West escalates by allowing long-range weapons into his country, he said he would take, quote, appropriate countermeasures. And I think that we already know earlier this week, he officially lowered the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons. And by showing this nuclear capable missile in a conventional role on the ground here, I think it is a very strong signal that he means what he says. And if these long range strikes by the West continue into Russia, and especially if they hit something, it is not unthinkable that he could escalate and use those missiles to strike Western targets outside of Ukraine. And then, of course, you had a huge possibility of an escalation.
You know, you're pointing out that Vladimir Putin wants to send out a signal that he means what he says. But the question, of course, is does the Biden administration, register this signal by Vladimir Putin, or are we looking at the possibility of a miscalculation because the Biden administration, in the fag end of its term, seems to be allowing the Ukrainians to fire the long-range missiles, such as the ATACMS and the British-given Storm Shadow missiles inside of Russia?
Well, listen, I'll just tell you from a military perspective, this is a very, very bad decision by the West. There is no upside. There is literally no chance that this could have, even if it was successful, even if the ATACMS missiles and the Storm Shadow missiles actually got to their targets, defeated Russian air defenses, which allegedly they did not. Apparently, most, if not all of those missiles were actually intercepted. And at least according to the Russians, none of them have actually struck targets. We've not seen any battle damage assessment to the counter. But if they actually get through, then then the whole network, the whole thing changes. So the question is, why does the U.S. want to take a risk after nearly 3 years of war and all these different weapon systems that we've inserted over the years have not changed anything on the ground? Why 2 months before a new administration comes in with a diametrically opposed desire to achieve peace and to find a negotiated settlement, would the outgoing administration risk escalation by these missiles and also these landmines, which they also just authorized for the first time? It raises lots of disturbing questions, and you talk about miscalculation. I mean, that could start in Washington, D.C., and we really need to get this under control quickly.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Davis, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.